Vexthor stood in front of the camera with his helmet removed. His scales were dull with exhaustion. Blood stained his armor. Behind him through the damaged airlock, the circle of predators was visible. Bears, wolves, mountain lions, wolverines. And above them all, Nyx perched on a boulder like a monument to ancient power. Her wings were spread wide. Her eyes glowed with fire. The broadcast reached every corner of the galaxy. Billions watched. Military commanders, political leaders, scientists, hunters, common citizens. Everyone who had laughed at Earth's creatures now watched in stunned silence as one of the galaxy's most decorated hunters prepared to admit defeat. Vexthor began speaking. His voice was steady but quiet. He told the truth. He explained how they had come to Earth expecting easy prey, how they had mocked the animals they found, how they had killed a grizzly bear and wolf pack with casual ease, how they had laughed at wolverines. Then he described what happened next. The wolverine that fought 6 armed hunters and injured 2 before dying. The coordinated assault that destroyed their camp. Bears that absorbed plasma fire and kept charging. Wolves that used tactics and strategy. Wolverines that attacked with fury beyond reason. He admitted that 3 of his team were dead. That he and his survivors were trapped. That Earth's creatures had defeated them completely. He looked directly into the camera. He said the words that would change everything. Earth's predators were among the most dangerous he had ever faced, not because of special powers or advanced abilities, but because they fought with absolute refusal to surrender, because they defended their territory with everything they had, because death did not stop them from fighting. He formally recommended that the Galactic Hunting Syndicate designate Earth as a protected world. No hunting, no exploitation, no military exercises. He urged the incoming battle group to turn back. He warned that anyone who came to Earth seeking easy prey would find only death. The transmission ended. Vexthor slumped against the wall. He had destroyed his reputation. His career was over, but he would live. That was something. Outside the ship, Lyra turned to face the cameras herself. She knew the galaxy was still watching. This was her moment, her chance to deliver the message that Earth needed the galaxy to hear. She stepped forward with Nyx moving beside her. The dragon lowered her massive head until it was level with Lyra, woman and dragon, ancient partners. Protectors of worlds, Lyra began to speak. Her voice carried across the broadcast with surprising clarity. She introduced herself simply. Lyra Ashwood, guardian, witness. Someone who had walked among the stars for longer than most civilizations had existed. She gestured to Nyx, her bonded companion. A dragon from the old times when such creatures ruled the void between worlds. She told the galaxy about Earth, about a world that seemed gentle on the surface but was forged in violence. A planet that had survived 5 mass extinctions, where life had been nearly wiped out multiple times but had always returned stronger. Where evolution had created creatures that prioritized one trait above all others. Survival. Earth's predators did not have energy shields or plasma weapons. They did not have dimensional shifting or telepathy. What they had was millions of years of natural selection that favored the most aggressive, the most persistent, the most absolutely unwilling to quit. A grizzly bear could survive injuries that would kill most galactic species. A wolf pack could coordinate attacks with precision that rivaled military units. And a wolverine, that small creature the Xanthari had mocked, could fight enemies 10 times its size and never consider retreat. But Lyra's message went deeper. She explained that Earth had produced something even more dangerous than its wildlife. Humanity. A species that combined that same survival instinct with intelligence and technology. Humans had climbed from caves to cities. They had survived plagues and wars and disasters. They had split the atom and reached their moon. And they were just beginning. She looked directly into the camera. Her violet eyes seemed to glow. She told the galaxy that humanity was coming. They would leave Earth. They would build starships. They would join the galactic community, and when they did, they would bring with them the same relentless spirit as their planet's predators, the same refusal to quit, the same determination to survive no matter the cost. The galaxy could choose how to meet humanity, as allies and equals, as partners in exploration and trade, or they could repeat the Xanthari's mistake. They could treat humans as primitive, as prey, as something to be exploited. But if they made that choice, they would learn the same lesson Vexthor had learned. Lyra gestured to the animals surrounding the ship. Everything on Earth bites back, everything. From the smallest Wolverine to the mightiest bear. From the humblest wolf to the most advanced human. Earth did not produce victims. It produced survivors, and survivors were the most dangerous creatures in the universe. She placed her hand on the scarred Wolverine beside her. The animal looked up at her with fearless eyes. This creature weighed 40 pounds. It had faced plasma weapons and energy shields. It had fought enemies with technology beyond its understanding. It had been wounded multiple times, and it had never stopped attacking, never considered surrender, never accepted defeat until its heart stopped beating. That was Earth's message to the galaxy. That was the warning they needed to hear. Come in peace and Earth would welcome you. Come seeking conquest and Earth would destroy you, not through superior technology, not through advanced weapons, but through sheer unbreakable will to survive. The broadcast transmission suddenly shifted. A new voice entered the feed. Commander Zektar of the incoming battle group. His image appeared on split screen. He was a massive Zinthari with dark armor and cold eyes. He demanded to know who Lyra thought she was, what authority she had to make threats. His battle group was minutes from Earth's atmosphere. They would land. They would rescue Vexthor. And they would deal with this dragon and these animals appropriately. Lyra smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. She told Zektar she represented something older than his entire civilization. She and Nyx were members of the Ancient Guard, protectors appointed under treaties signed thousands of years ago, treaties that predated the current Galactic Council, treaties that gave them authority to designate worlds as protected when those worlds showed sufficient promise. She raised one hand. In it was a device that looked impossibly old, a seal of office that had not been seen in recorded history. The Ancient Guard had faded into legend centuries ago. Most species thought they were myths, stories told to children, but the seal was real. Its authenticity codes were impossible to fake. Every government database in the galaxy would recognize it. Zektar's expression changed. He checked his own systems. The seal was genuine. Lyra had authority that superseded military command, authority that went back to the founding documents of galactic law. If she designated Earth as protected under the ancient accords, the Galactic Council would have no choice but to honor it. Any violation would trigger sanctions, possible expulsion from the galactic community. Economic isolation. Lyra made it official, by her authority as guardian, by the bond she shared with Nyx, by the ancient accords that still governed galactic law. She declared Earth a protected world. No hunting, no exploitation, no military presence without explicit permission from Earth's native government. When humanity was ready to join the galactic community, they would do so on their own terms. Until then, Earth was off limits, Zektar argued. He protested, but Lyra simply waited. Finally, he acknowledged her authority. His battle group would not land. They would retrieve Vexthor and his survivors and leave immediately. The Zinthari would trouble Earth no more. The broadcast ended. Silence fell over the Canadian wilderness. The animals began to disperse. Their enemy was defeated. Their territory was secure. The bears wandered back into the forest. The wolves melted into the shadows. The mountain lions climbed back to their ridges. Only the Wolverines remained a moment longer. The scarred one that had fought beside Lyra looked at her one last time. Then it too vanished into the undergrowth. Kate emerged from her hiding spot and approached Lyra and Nyx. She was shaking slightly. Not from fear, but from the enormity of what had just happened. Earth had just been saved from invasion by a woman and a dragon. By coordinated wildlife and ancient authority. It seemed impossible. Yet she had witnessed it all. She asked Lyra what would happen now. Would she stay on Earth or return to the stars? Lyra looked at the forest around them, at the mountains in the distance, at the clean sky above. She told Kate she would stay for a while. She and Nyx had protected many worlds over the centuries. They had watched civilizations rise and fall. Earth was special, though. Earth had something rare, the perfect balance of wildness and wisdom, ferocity and compassion. Humanity would need guidance as they prepared to join the galaxy. Not control, not interference, just someone watching from the shadows, making sure they were ready, making sure they understood the responsibility that came with joining the galactic community. Lyra and Nyx would provide that guidance, hidden, silent, but always present. Kate understood. She offered to help however she could, to keep their secret, to assist in protecting Earth's wild places. Lyra accepted gratefully. She would need allies among humans, people who understood the news of the Wolverine incident spread across the galaxy faster than light. Within hours, every major network was discussing it. Scientists analyzed the footage frame by frame. Military strategists studied the creature's attack patterns. The Xanthari hunting syndicate issued statements claiming it was a lucky fluke. One small animal had gotten past their defenses through random chance. Nothing more. Vexthor read these statements and said nothing. He knew the truth. That Wolverine had not been lucky. It had been relentless. It had fought with a fury that defied logic. Even now, hours later, his injured hunters were being treated in the medical bay of their ship. The one with the shattered knee would need surgery. The other had infections from the bite wounds despite advanced antibiotics. But Vexthor could not retreat. His pride would not allow it. More importantly, the entire galaxy was watching. If he returned to the ship now and left Earth, he would be branded a coward. His reputation would be destroyed. His hunting license would be revoked. Everything he had built over decades would crumble, so he made a decision. They would go deeper into the wilderness. They would find something truly impressive to kill. They would prove that Earth's creatures were nothing special. The broadcast would continue. Victory would be theirs. What Vexthor did not know was that his earlier kills had consequences. The dead grizzly bear had a mate. She was larger than the male, nearly 900 pounds of muscle and rage. She had caught the scent of her partner's death. She had smelled the strange burning odor of plasma weapons. Now she was tracking the hunters with single-minded purpose. The wolf pack that died had been part of a larger family group. 3 other packs shared this territory. They had heard the plasma fire. They had found the bodies of their kin. Wolves were intelligent, they understood cause and effect. These strange creatures with their loud weapons had killed their family. The packs began gathering together, forming a super pack of nearly 30 animals. And deep in the oldest parts of the forest, a family of wolverines had caught the scent of blood. Not just any blood. The blood of their own kind. Wolverines were territorial and aggressive. They did not forgive. They did not forget. 3 adult wolverines began moving toward the source of that scent. The Xanthari hunters had no idea they were being tracked. Their sensors were designed to detect energy signatures and advanced technology. They were not built to notice the subtle signs of Earth predators on the hunt. The broken twigs, the disturbed leaves, the eyes watching from the shadows. Night fell over the Canadian wilderness. The hunters made camp in a small clearing. They erected force field barriers around their perimeter. Automated turrets scanned the darkness. Floodlights illuminated the surrounding trees. According to their technology, they were perfectly safe. Lyra watched from a distance with Nyx curled beside her. She had cloaked both of them from detection using ancient methods the Xanthari sensors could not penetrate. She observed the camp and shook her head slowly. These hunters relied too much on their equipment. They had forgotten how to truly see, how to truly listen. She could sense the predators gathering in the darkness. The bear was out there, circling the camp, testing for weaknesses. The wolves were spreading out, coordinating their approach with silent efficiency. The wolverines were moving closer, low to the ground, patient and deadly. Nyx rumbled softly. The dragon could sense them too. She wanted to intervene, but Lyra placed a hand on her scales. Not yet. This lesson needed to happen. The galaxy needed to see what Earth's creatures could do when pushed, when defending their territory, when avenging their dead. The attack began just after midnight. The grizzly charged first. She came from the north, a massive shadow that materialized from the darkness. The automated turrets detected her and opened fire. Energy bolts struck her chest and shoulders. She roared in pain but did not stop. Her thick hide and layers of fat absorbed damage that should have killed her instantly. She crashed into the force field barrier with the force of a speeding vehicle. The barrier held but flickered. Alarms blared through the camp. The Xanthari hunters scrambled for their weapons. Vexthor was shouting orders. The turrets continued firing. The bear took hit after hit. Her fur was smoking. Blood poured from multiple wounds. Any rational creature would have retreated. She kept attacking. Her massive paws hammered at the barrier. Each impact sent ripples across the energy field. The generator powering the shield began to overheat. Warning lights flashed red, then the wolves came from 3 directions simultaneously. They did not charge blindly. They moved in coordinated waves. Half would rush forward, drawing turret fire. While the turrets tracked them, the other half would advance from different angles. They were using tactics, strategy, intelligence that the Zenthari had not expected from animals. One wolf made it through the barrier before it could fully reset after the bear's assault. The creature went straight for the generator. It bit into cables and power conduits with desperate fury. Sparks flew. The wolf died instantly from the electrical feedback. But the damage was done. The generator sputtered and failed. The barrier collapsed. The grizzly bear charged into the camp. Vexthor fired his plasma rifle at point-blank range. The bolt took the bear in the face. She dropped and did not move, but she had done her job. The defenses were broken. The camp was exposed. The remaining wolves poured in like a furry tide. The Zenthari fought back with everything they had. Plasma fire lit up the night. Wolves died. But for every one that fell, the others learned. They began dodging, weaving, using the camp equipment as cover. They were adapting in real time. One hunter went down with a wolf at his throat. The animal had leaped over an equipment crate and caught him from behind. His armor held at first, but wolf jaws exerted over 1,000 pounds of pressure per square inch. Something cracked. Then something broke. The hunter stopped moving. Another Zenthari tried to retreat to the ship, but 3 wolves cut him off. They did not attack immediately. They circled him, herded him, drove him back toward the camp where the killing ground waited. It was sophisticated pack behavior. It was terrifying in its efficiency. Vexthor rallied his remaining hunters. They formed a defensive circle and fired in controlled bursts. Their training and discipline began to turn the tide. Wolves fell in greater numbers. The survivors finally broke off and retreated into the darkness. The Zenthari stood panting, wounded but alive. 2 of their team were dead. The others were injured. Then they heard a new sound, low growls from multiple directions. The Wolverines arrived like demons from nightmares. 3 of them, each weighing less than 50 pounds but moving with the confidence of apex predators. They had watched the entire battle. They had seen the weaknesses in the Zenthari defenses. Now they attacked with surgical precision. The first, Wolverine went for the hunter with the injured knee from the earlier encounter. The Zenthari tried to aim his rifle, but his damaged leg gave out. He fell. The Wolverine was on him instantly. It found every gap in his armor, every weak point, every seal and joint. The hunter's screams were cut short. The second Wolverine engaged Vexthor directly. It dodged his plasma fire with impossible agility. It ran up his chest armor. It bit at his helmet seals. Vexthor grabbed it with both hands and threw it as hard as he could. The creature hit a tree trunk and fell to the ground. It stood up immediately and attacked again. The third Wolverine was the largest. It worked with calculated intelligence. It damaged equipment rather than attacking hunters directly. It shredded cables. It tore at power packs. It created chaos and confusion. When a hunter turned to deal with it, the creature would dodge away, leading them into positions where the other Wolverines could strike. The battle lasted 7 minutes. When it ended, 3 Zenthari lay dead. The others had managed to reach their ship and seal the airlock. 2 Wolverines had died. The third, the largest one, sat outside the ship, staring at the entrance. Its fur was matted with blood. Some of it was its own, most was not. It did not move. It simply watched and waited. Inside the ship, Vexthor and his 2 surviving hunters treated their wounds with shaking hands. The broadcast was still running. The cameras had captured everything. The galaxy had watched Earth's predators coordinate an assault that destroyed a trained military hunting team. They had watched animals adapt and learn and kill with brutal efficiency. Vexthor pulled up his communication console with bloody fingers. He needed to call for extraction. He needed to request military support. But when he opened the galactic channels, He saw the reaction to their broadcast, the comments, the analysis, the sheer disbelief at what had just occurred. Military commanders were requesting the footage. Xenobiologists were demanding samples. The Galactic Council had opened emergency sessions to discuss Earth. And everywhere, from every corner of known space, the same questions appeared. How could animals without technology fight like this? How could creatures with only teeth and claws defeat hunters with plasma weapons and energy shields? Lyra emerged from the shadows near the camp. Nyx materialized beside her, the dragon's scales reflecting the fires still burning from the battle. The surviving Wolverine turned to look at them. For a long moment, woman and animal stared at each other. Then the Wolverine dipped its head slightly, a sign of acknowledgement, of respect between predators. Kate Morrison led Lyra and Nyx to her ranger station 5 miles from the Xanthari camp. The building was small but functional. Maps covered the walls showing every trail and landmark in the region. Communication equipment filled one corner. Kate immediately began working the radio and computer systems with practiced efficiency. She explained the situation while she worked. 3 Xanthari hunters remained alive inside their ship. They had sent distress calls to their people. According to intercepted transmissions that Kate had accessed through military contacts, reinforcements were coming. Not more hunters. A full military battle group. 40 armed soldiers with heavy weapons and combat armor. They would arrive in less than 48 hours. Lyra listened carefully. Her violet eyes were dark with thought. She had seen this pattern before on other worlds. A small group would arrive thinking themselves superior. They would underestimate the local dangers. When things went wrong, they would call for military support. The military would come with overwhelming force. They would claim they were simply rescuing their people. But once they established a presence, they never left. Earth would become a training ground, a proving ground, a place where galactic soldiers came to test themselves against primitive but fierce wildlife. The planet would be carved up into hunting preserves. Humanity would be contacted only when the Syndicate was ready to present them with a list of demands. Earth's first introduction to the galactic community would define humans as subjects rather than equals. Kate finished her calls and turned to face Lyra directly. She asked the question that mattered most. Could they stop this? Could 2 women and a dragon prevent an alien invasion force from landing? Lyra was quiet for a long moment. Then she explained what she was. She told Kate about the centuries she had lived, about the worlds she had protected, about the ancient order she belonged to that predated most current galactic civilizations. She explained that she and Nyx were bonded through methods lost to time, that together they were far more powerful than they appeared. But power alone would not be enough. The battle group coming to Earth had enough firepower to level a mountain. They would not be impressed by a single dragon and 1 warrior woman. They needed something else. They needed to make a statement so profound that the entire galaxy would hesitate before threatening Earth again. Kate understood immediately. They needed to defeat the Xanthari so decisively that it became a warning. Earth had to be seen not as prey but as dangerous territory, a place where even the galaxy's elite hunters could die. She asked what Lyra had in mind. Lyra laid out her plan. It was audacious. It was risky. But it was the only path forward. They would use the next 48 hours to prepare the battlefield. Kate would use her knowledge of animal behavior and the terrain to help. They would evacuate any humans from the surrounding area first. Then they would deliberately guide every major predator in the region toward one location, the Xanthari ship. Kate hesitated. She was a conservationist. The thought of sending animals into combat went against everything she believed. Many of them would die. But Lyra pointed out the alternative. If the battle group arrived, they would hunt these creatures anyway. Every bear, wolf, and wolverine in this region would become targets. Better to give them a chance to fight back on their terms. Kate made her decision. She began coordinating with other rangers and wildlife officials. She used carefully worded warnings about dangerous animals to evacuate hikers and campers. She claimed there was an aggressive grizzly in the area. Within hours, the entire region was cleared of civilians. Then came the harder part. Guiding predators required understanding their behavior. Kate spent years studying these animals. She knew their territories, their hunting patterns, their triggers. She and her team began placing bait stations, not to feed the animals, but to create trails they would follow. They used scent markers, They deliberately disturbed territories to make predators defensive. They worked through the night, creating invisible paths that would funnel wildlife toward the Zenthari camp. Meanwhile, Lyra prepared Nyx for what was coming. The dragon would need to reveal herself to the Galactic broadcast. Every camera on that Zenthari ship was still recording. Billions were still watching. When Nyx appeared, it needed to be dramatic. It needed to be terrifying. The galaxy needed to see something they thought was extinct, something from their oldest nightmares. Nyx understood. She was ancient even by dragon standards. She remembered times when her kind ruled entire star systems, when other species fled at the sight of dragon wings. She could project that primal fear. She could remind the galaxy why dragons were once the most feared creatures in known space. The preparations took 36 hours. By the time they finished, Kate was exhausted but satisfied. She had created a network of attractants and barriers that would guide animals from over 100 square miles toward one focal point: grizzly bears following food scents, wolf packs drawn by territorial markers, mountain lions responding to what they perceived as threats to their hunting grounds, and wolverines, always aggressive, always territorial, moving toward the scent of their fallen kin. Inside the Zenthari ship, Vexthor and his two surviving hunters were growing desperate. They had tried to leave twice. Both times predators had appeared from the forest: wolves, a mountain lion. Once a massive grizzly that stood outside the airlock for 3 hours before finally leaving. The animals were watching the ship, waiting. It was behavior that should have been impossible for creatures without technology. Vexthor studied the security feeds constantly. He saw the strange woman and the park ranger working together. He saw them placing things in the forest, creating patterns he did not understand. And always, lurking in the background, was that impossible dragon, black as midnight, eyes burning with intelligence, watching everything. He tried contacting the incoming battle group. He warned them about the dragon, about the coordinated animal attacks, about the mysterious woman who seemed to control both. The military commander dismissed his concerns. Commander Zektar was a veteran of 20 campaigns. He had fought in void battles and planetary sieges. He told Vexthor that fear had clouded his judgment, that animals were animals regardless of their ferocity, that a single dragon could be handled with proper firepower. The reinforcements would arrive in 12 hours. Vexthor tried to feel relieved. Instead, he felt a growing sense of dread. Dawn broke over the Canadian wilderness on the day the battle group was scheduled to arrive. Kate and Lyra stood together on a ridge overlooking the Zenthari ship. Behind them, Nyx stretched her wings. The dragon had grown larger during the night. Not physically, but her presence had expanded. She radiated power that made the air shimmer. Kate could see movement in the forest below, shadows shifting between trees. The animals were gathering. More than she had expected, far more. Her carefully placed lures had worked too well. Or perhaps the creatures had communicated with each other in ways humans did not understand. Perhaps they recognized that something important was about to happen. She counted at least 5 grizzly bears, multiple wolf packs totaling over 40 animals, a dozen mountain lions, and wolverines. So many wolverines, they emerged from the forest like demons. 8 of them, maybe 10, all converging on the clearing where the Zenthari ship sat. The animals did not attack yet. They simply surrounded the ship, waiting. It was eerie, unnatural. Kate had never seen anything like it in 20 years of wildlife management. It was as if every predator in the region understood they had a common enemy. Lyra placed her hand on Kate's shoulder. It was time. The battle group would be entering Earth's atmosphere within the hour. They needed to be ready. Kate nodded and retreated to a safe distance. Lyra mounted Nyx. The dragon's scales rippled like liquid shadow. Her eyes blazed brighter. Inside the ship, alarms began blaring. Vexthor rushed to the command deck. His sensors were detecting something massive approaching from orbit. The battle group. Finally. He opened communication channels to guide them in. But then another alarm activated. Something was approaching from ground level. Something big. Something that registered power levels his sensors could barely measure. Nyx rose into the sky on wings of darkness. She climbed higher and higher until she was visible for miles. Then she dove. Plasma breath erupted from her jaws. Not aimed at the ship, not yet. She was announcing her presence. The fire lit up the morning sky like a second sun. The heat washed over the forest. Trees burst into flame. Every camera on the Xanthari ship captured it. Every broadcast feed across the galaxy showed it. A dragon. A real dragon. Alive. Powerful. Furious. Species that had thought dragons extinct for millennia suddenly remembered why their ancestors had feared them. The galactic broadcast feeds exploded with panic and disbelief. On the ground, the animals began their assault. Not random. Not chaotic. Coordinated. The bears charged from the north. The wolves from the east and west. The mountain lions from the south. And the Wolverines, those small furious demons, went straight for any weak points in the ship's hull. They climbed. They bit at seals and hatches. They created openings. Nyx descended like judgment itself. She did not kill the Xanthari immediately. Instead, she destroyed their equipment. Her claws tore. The Xanthari warship descended through Earth's atmosphere like a meteor wrapped in flames. Its shields protected it from the heat of re-entry. Inside the command deck, Vexthor watched the view screen with eager eyes. Below them stretched endless wilderness. Dense forests covered rolling mountains. Rivers cut through valleys like silver ribbons. Snow capped the highest peaks even though it was late summer. The ship landed in a remote area of northern Canada. The location was perfect for their purposes. No human settlements for hundreds of miles, plenty of dangerous wildlife according to their databases. Grizzly bears, wolf packs, mountain lions, and of course the Wolverines that had provided so much amusement back on Kael'thar Prime. 6 Xanthari, hunters emerged from the ship wearing full combat armor. Their suits were worth more than most planets' annual budgets. Energy shields hummed around each hunter. Advanced sensors fed information directly to their helmets. Plasma rifles hung from weapon harnesses. Drones buzzed overhead, capturing footage for the galactic broadcast. Vexthor inhaled deeply and laughed. The air smelled clean, too clean. No toxic gases, no radiation, no dangerous spores or airborne predators. This world was soft. Its atmosphere was practically harmless. Even the temperature was comfortable. He could not understand how any serious predator could evolve in such gentle conditions. The broadcast began immediately. Billions of viewers across the galaxy tuned in to watch. The Xanthari had promoted this hunt heavily. It was being sold as entertainment. A chance to see what primitive Earth creatures looked like compared to real galactic predators. Betting pools had formed on how quickly the hunters would complete their mission. The first target appeared within an hour. The sensors detected a large heat signature moving through the forest. The hunters approached carefully, more out of habit than actual concern. Their drones flew ahead and sent back footage. A massive grizzly bear stood near a stream, catching fish with its powerful paws. Vexthor studied the creature through his helmet display. It was large, he admitted. Perhaps 800 pounds of muscle and fur. Its claws were impressive, sharp enough to tear through flesh easily, but it had no armor, no energy projection, no defensive capabilities beyond its physical body. To a Xanthari warrior who had hunted creatures that could phase through dimensions or breathe plasma, this bear looked almost fragile. The hunters spread out in a standard formation. 3 took position to the right, 2 to the left. Vexthor stayed center. The bear noticed them and stood on its hind legs. It roared. The sound echoed through the forest. It was loud and threatening. The galactic audience watching the broadcast found it amusing. Some laughed. Others made jokes in the chat feeds. Vexthor raised his plasma rifle and fired once. The bolt of superheated energy struck the bear in the chest. The creature fell immediately, dead before it hit the ground. The entire encounter lasted less than 30 seconds. The hunters barely broke stride as they continued deeper into the wilderness. The broadcast viewers loved it. They commented on how easy it was, how primitive Earth's predators seemed. The betting pools shifted. People were now wagering on whether the hunters would even break a sweat during this expedition. 2 hours later, the sensors picked up multiple heat signatures. A wolf pack. 12 animals moving through the trees with coordinated precision. The hunters paused to study them. The wolves were smaller than the bear, but they moved like trained soldiers. They flanked. They communicated with subtle gestures. They were clearly intelligent for animals, but intelligence meant nothing against superior technology. The Zenthari opened fire as soon as the wolves attacked. Plasma bolts lit up the forest. 3 wolves died in the first volley. The others tried to scatter, but the hunters' targeting systems tracked them easily. Within 2 minutes, the entire pack lay dead among the pine needles. Vexthor felt disappointed. He had expected more from Earth's so-called predators. They were aggressive. He would give them that. But aggression without power was meaningless. These animals had no defense against modern weapons, no shields, no armor, just flesh and fur and foolish bravery. The broadcast continued. The viewers were entertained, but many were starting to lose interest. This was too easy, too one-sided. Some people began requesting refunds for their pay-per-view fees. The Zenthari needed something more exciting to maintain their audience. That was when the sensors detected a new signature. Small, moving fast. The database identified it immediately. Wolverine. Threat level minimal. Weight approximately 40 pounds. Known for scavenging behavior. The perfect comedy relief for their broadcast. The hunters laughed when they saw the creature. It was even smaller in person than in the footage they had watched. Its fur was brown and shaggy. Its body was stocky and low to the ground. It looked like something a child might cuddle. The Galactic audience began laughing too. This was what Earth considered dangerous. This tiny furball. They cornered the Wolverine near a frozen stream. The animal had been drinking when they arrived. Now it stood with its back to the water, staring at the 6 armored hunters surrounding it. Any sensible creature would have run. Any animal with survival instincts would have tried to escape. The Wolverine did neither. It attacked. The speed was shocking. One moment the creature was standing still. The next it was a blur of fur and teeth and claws launching itself at the nearest hunter. The energy shield flared as the Wolverine hit it. The barrier held, but the impact staggered the hunter backward. The animal bounced off, landed on all 4s, and immediately attacked again. Vexthor raised his rifle but hesitated. His targeting system was having trouble locking onto the Wolverine. The creature moved too erratically. It dodged. It weaved. It never stopped moving and never stopped attacking. Its teeth found a gap in the first hunter's armor at the knee joint. Blood sprayed. The hunter screamed and fell. The other Zenthari opened fire. Plasma bolts scorched the earth around the Wolverine. One bolt grazed its shoulder. The smell of burned fur filled the air. The creature should have retreated, should have recognized it was outmatched. Instead, it roared with fury and attacked harder. It went for a second hunter, climbing up his armor like a ladder. Its claws found gaps between the plates. It bit at the helmet seals. The hunter tried to shake it off, but the Wolverine held on with unnatural strength. Another hunter tried to help by grabbing the animal. The Wolverine twisted and bit his hand hard enough to crack the armor glove. The broadcast audience had gone silent. This was not what they expected. This tiny creature was fighting 6 armed hunters and actually hurting them. Its ferocity was beyond anything they had seen. It did not fight with strategy or intelligence. It fought with pure rage, with the absolute refusal to accept defeat. Vexthor finally got a clean shot and took it. The plasma bolt hit the Wolverine directly. The creature flew backward and hit the ground hard. Smoke rose from the wound. It should have been dead. Any normal animal would have been dead. But the Wolverine tried to stand. Its legs shook. Blood dripped from its mouth. It tried to take a step toward the hunters. Vexthor fired twice more. The Wolverine finally stopped moving. Silence fell over the forest. The Zenthari hunters stood panting. 2 of them were injured badly enough to need immediate medical attention. One had a shattered knee. The other had 3 broken fingers and deep bite wounds. Their armor was scratched and dented. Their shields had nearly failed. All of this from a 40-pound scavenger. The broadcast feed exploded with comments. Viewers who had been bored minutes ago were now arguing. Some claimed the hunters were weak. Others said Earth's creatures were clearly more dangerous than expected. The footage was being analyzed frame by frame. Scientists across the galaxy began requesting data on Wolverine physiology. Vexthor looked down at the dead animal. It had been so small, so seemingly harmless. Yet it had fought like nothing he had ever encountered. not with supernatural powers or advanced abilities, just with raw fury and the complete inability to quit. Even dying, even facing certain death, it had kept attacking. For the first time since arriving on Earth, Vexthor felt something unfamiliar. Not fear exactly, but doubt. If a creature this small could fight this hard, what else was hiding in these forests? What other surprises did Earth have waiting for them? He looked around at the wilderness stretching in every direction. The trees suddenly seemed darker, the shadows deeper. Somewhere in the distance, an animal howled. It might have been a wolf. It might have been something else. The sound sent a chill down his spine despite his armor's climate control. The broadcast was still running. Billions still watched. But the tone had changed completely. This was no longer simple entertainment. The galaxy had just witnessed something important. They had seen Earth's creatures fight not for survival, but with survival itself. The difference was significant. Vexthor ordered his team to continue deeper into the wilderness. They had a mission to complete, a reputation to uphold. But as they walked away from the dead Wolverine, he could not shake the feeling that they had just made a terrible mistake. Behind them, the creature's blood seeped into the earth. The scent carried on the wind. Through the forest, other animals caught that smell. Other Wolverines, wolves, bears. They recognized it as the scent of one of their own. They recognized it as a declaration of war. The trading hub of Kelthar Prime buzzed with activity, as hundreds of alien species moved through the massive marketplace like a river of scales, fur, and strange flesh. The air smelled of exotic foods and weapon oil. Holographic displays flickered above vendor stalls showing footage of dangerous creatures from across the galaxy. This was where hunters came to trade stories and sell their trophies. Lyra Ashwood walked through the crowds with quiet steps. Her silver hair fell past her shoulders and caught the light from the neon signs above. Her eyes were an unusual shade of violet that seemed to glow faintly in the shadows. She wore dark leather armor that looked ancient but well-maintained. Scars marked her pale hands, but she moved with the grace of someone who had survived countless battles. Behind her walked something that made every creature in the marketplace step aside. Nyx was a dragon the color of midnight. Her scales absorbed light rather than reflecting it. She was the size of a large horse but moved with the silence of a hunting cat. Her eyes burned with intelligence that went beyond animal instinct. Smoke drifted lazily from her nostrils as she followed Lyra through the crowd. People whispered as they passed. Some knew the stories. Some had only heard rumors. Lyra was old by any standard. No one knew exactly how old. She had been hunting dangerous creatures across the galaxy for centuries. Some said she was the last of her kind. Others claimed she was something older than the current galactic civilization. She never confirmed or denied anything. Nyx was equally mysterious. Dragons of her type were supposed to be extinct. The history books said they had all died out in the Great Wars thousands of years ago. Yet here she was, bonded to Lyra in a connection that went deeper than master and pet. They shared thoughts. They moved as one. Where Lyra went, Nyx followed. The pair made their way to a large amphitheater near the center of the hub. This was where the Galactic Hunting Syndicate held its gatherings. Hunters from dozens of worlds came here to boast about their kills and plan new expeditions. Lyra rarely attended these events, but something had drawn her here today. She found a spot in the shadows near the back and settled in to listen. Nyx curled up beside her like a massive cat. The dragon's presence kept other hunters at a respectful distance. On the stage below, various speakers took turns describing their latest hunts. A Krellian warrior boasted about killing a void stalker in deep space. A Morphean tracker displayed footage of hunting quantum beasts that existed in multiple dimensions at once. Then a group of Zenthari took the stage. They were reptilian creatures standing nearly 7 feet tall with dark green scales and yellow eyes. Their kind were famous across the galaxy as warriors and hunters. They wore armor decorated with trophies from their kills. Their leader was named Vexthor. He carried himself with the arrogance of someone who had never truly been challenged. Vexthor activated a holographic display showing a small blue and green planet. Lyra recognized it immediately. Earth. The newest world to be discovered by the galactic community. Humanity had only recently developed faster than light communication. They were still years away from having their own starships. The galactic community was watching them with interest but had not yet made official contact. Vexthor began speaking in a loud voice that carried across the amphitheater. He told the crowd that his team had obtained permits to hunt on Earth. He showed images of various Earth animals: grizzly bears, gray wolves, mountain lions, and something called a Wolverine. The Zenthari hunters laughed as they discussed these creatures. They called them primitive. They said Earth animals were soft compared to the deadly predators found on warrior worlds. One hunter joked that a grizzly bear looked like a pet compared to the razor beasts of Zenthar Prime. Another said the wolves seemed cute rather than dangerous. When they showed footage of a Wolverine, the laughter grew louder. The creature was small. It weighed maybe 40 pounds. Its fur was brown and shaggy. To the assembled hunters, it looked like something a child might keep as a pet. The database listed it as a scavenger with minimal threat level. The Zenthari made jokes about using it for target practice. Vexthor announced they would broadcast their Earth hunt to the entire galaxy. It would be entertainment. They would show everyone how weak and pathetic Earth's so-called predators really were. The crowd cheered and applauded. Many hunters were already placing bets on how quickly the Zenthari would complete their hunt. Lyra sat perfectly still in the shadows. Her violet eyes had grown darker. Beside her, Nyx raised her head slightly. Smoke drifted from the dragon's nostrils in a thin stream. The two of them had not spoken aloud, but they were communicating nonetheless. Ancient memories stirred in Lyra's mind. She had been to Earth once. It was centuries ago, long before humans had even developed radio technology. She had walked through pristine forests and climbed mountains that touched the sky. She had watched the animals there. Even then, she had recognized something unusual about that world. Earth's creatures fought differently than most galactic wildlife. They did not rely on venom or energy projection or dimensional shifting. They relied on something more primal. Raw ferocity, unrelenting aggression, the absolute refusal to give up even when facing certain death. She remembered watching a Wolverine defend its kill from a grizzly bear 3 times its size. The small creature had not run. It had not hidden. It attacked with such fury that the bear had eventually retreated. She remembered wolves taking down prey much larger than themselves through coordination and persistence. She remembered animals that should have died from their wounds continuing to fight until their hearts stopped beating. Earth's creatures were not the most venomous. They were not the largest or the fastest. But they possessed something that many galactic species had lost through centuries of technological advancement. They possessed the will to survive at any cost. They fought not for honor or sport, but for the simple right to exist. And they never stopped fighting until they were dead. Lyra stood up slowly. Several nearby hunters flinched at her movement. Nyx rose beside her, stretching like a cat before following her bonded companion toward the exit. They moved through the crowds again, ignored by most now that the presentations were continuing. Outside the amphitheater, Lyra stopped and looked up at the artificial sky of the space station. Somewhere out there, Earth hung in space, unaware that it was about to become a battleground. The Zenthari would arrive soon with their advanced weapons and their shields and their cameras. They would hunt, they would kill, and they would learn. Lyra made her decision without hesitation. She and Nyx would go to Earth not to hunt, not to interfere directly, but to witness. Something deep in her ancient instincts told her that the galaxy was about to receive an important lesson. The Zenthari thought they were going on a simple hunt. They thought Earth's creatures were weak and primitive. They were about to discover how wrong they were. Nyx rumbled softly beside her. The dragon could sense Lyra's thoughts and approved. They had protected many worlds over the centuries. They had watched over species that showed potential. Earth was different, though. Earth's creatures reminded Lyra of something the galaxy had forgotten. The primal truth that survival was not about technology or power. It was about the refusal to quit. It was about fighting back no matter the odds. The Zenthari were bringing their weapons and their cameras and their arrogance. Earth would respond with something far more dangerous. Earth would respond with creatures that did not understand the concept of surrender. Creatures that would fight until their last breath. Creatures that treated every battle as a fight to the death because that was the only way they knew how to survive. Lyra allowed herself the smallest smile as she walked toward the docking bay where her ship waited. Nyx walked beside her, smoke trailing from her nostrils. The galaxy was about to learn something important. They were about to learn why you should never underestimate a world simply because its inhabitants lacked advanced technology. They were about to meet the Wolverine, and nothing would ever be the same.